Hi everyone, and thanks for joining me here in the Road Choice Garage. I'm Justin, and I'm here to share another chapter in Road Choice Clutch Technical Training. This program covers clutch brake basics, and we'll get into brake types, how they operate, causes of failure, brake thickness, and settings. Let me start by giving you a clutch brake overview. These brakes are used on non-synchronized transmissions, and they're designed to slow or stop the input shaft when the clutch pedal is depressed. The brake is installed on the input shaft against the input shaft bearing retainer. There are tabs on the clutch brake that fit into two special grooves on the input shaft. A clutch brake works at engine idle with the truck stopped and is only used when shifting into first or reverse. The braking function is the result of pressure coupled with the friction material. The two most popular clutch brake types are torque limiting and hinge style. Other styles include rigid one-piece and two-piece styles. For a clutch brake to operate, the clutch must be fully released. Since the brake is connected to the input shaft when pressure is applied to the clutch brake, the friction material on the brake causes the shaft to slow. Note that torque limiting clutch brakes are designed to slip internally when under too much load. This keeps the tabs from breaking off and prevents damage to the transmission. Clutch brakes come in different thicknesses to compensate for the wear that takes place in the clutch envelope. The thickness of a standard size brake is between 3/8 of an inch and 7/16 of an inch, and oversized brakes are also available. Here's how to verify proper clutch brake squeeze. Insert a 10/1000 of an inch feeler gauge between the release bearing and the clutch brake. Then depress the pedal to the end of the stroke. The feeler gauge must be tightly clamped between the bearing and the clutch brake, and this confirms the contact of the bearing to the clutch brake. The clutch brake will be squeezed if the total pedal stroke slightly exceeds the movement required to move the fork 5/8 of an inch to 11/16 of an inch. This dimension is the combined total of the 1/8 inch clearance between the fork and the release bearing, and the 1/2 inch to 9/16 of an inch clutch brake gap. In the event the brake is not squeezed, do not change the 1/2 inch to 9/16 inch gap or the 1/8 inch clearance between the fork and bearing housing. In this situation, consult the vehicle manufacturer's service manual. If the clutch brake isn't being squeezed, we need to know why. And here are some things to check for. Look for worn linkage components or a worn fork and cross-shaft bushings. If necessary, replace those components. You may have an improper linkage assembly. Verify that the linkage is assembled correctly. Check the pedal stroke. To adjust, raise the upper and/or lower the lower pedal stops. And if the clutch is hydraulically assisted, make sure the slave and master cylinders are functioning properly. Keep in mind that the maximum brake squeeze in a truck cab should not exceed 1 inch from the end of the pedal stroke. If it does, here's how to adjust it. Change the pedal stops in the cab to reduce the total pedal stroke. Increase the 1/8 inch fork to bearing setting to lower squeeze. Doing this will increase the free pedal travel. Now, when a clutch brake fails, it's usually due to a couple of things. On a rigid style brake, the tabs can break off. On a torque limiting brake, the clutch brake can slip and fail to slow the input shaft. Or, on hinged or a two-piece design, the brake could open up or come apart. But what causes the failure in the first place? Look for these symptoms: improper adjustment, a worn input shaft bearing retainer, worn grooves on the input shaft, or driver abuse. The driver's been pressing the pedal to the floor while moving. Okay, now you know a lot more about clutch brakes, how they work, and how to get the settings right. This is a vital component you'll want to replace with every installation. Well, that's it for this chapter. I hope you'll explore the other chapters in this clutch technical training series to make sure your clutch knowledge is up to date. You'll find all the parts information you need at roadchoice.com, and you can always contact us directly with questions about what you've learned here. This is Justin for Road Choice Truck Parts, and I'll see you next time.